All right. Welcome, everyone, to the September 3rd Lawrence City Commission meeting. And right now, our first item up is our executive session, and I would entertain a motion to recess into executive session.
I'd move to recess into executive session for approximately 30 minutes to discuss employer-employee negotiations pursuant to the employer-employee negotiations exception as set forth in KSA 75-4319B3. The justification for the executive session is to keep employer-employee negotiation matters confidential at this time. The City Commission will resume in its regular meeting in the City Commission room at 5:32 p.m. after the executive session is concluded.
Second.
I have a first and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Approved 4, 1 absent. So, motion to extend?
Yeah, well, back, I would make a motion to extend the executive session 10 minutes to 5:42.
Second.
I have a first and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Approve 3, 2 absent. All right. Turn from executive session and have nothing to report. I guess we'll just hang for like a minute or two until we actually start the meeting. But yeah, I definitely thought it was just me, and I was just like, man, is it? I was like, man, maybe. All right, welcome everybody back to the September 3rd Lawrence City Commission meeting. And now we'll have Sherry go ahead and give us the rundown.
Thank you, and good evening, everyone. Please silence your cell phones to minimize distractions during the meeting. When the mayor calls for public comment, please approach the podium to indicate you wish to speak. Virtual participants should use the raise hand function to indicate they wish to speak. When prompted, select Join as Panelist. There will be a brief delay as your role changes. Once your name is called, please unmute and turn on your camera to provide your comments. Please state your name and zip code before speaking. The city reserves the right to turn videos off or mute participants. All comments will be limited to 3 minutes. The primary format for accessing or participating in this meeting is in person at City Hall. Virtual access to view or participate in the meeting cannot be guaranteed. The chat function will not be monitored. If you have any trouble, the meeting can be viewed on the city's YouTube channel and cable channel 25. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Sherry. All right, I'll go ahead and move us on to item B, approve the agenda. The City Commission reserves the right to amend, supplement, or reorder the agenda during the meeting. I would entertain a motion.
Move to approve the agenda?
Second that item.
You have a first and a second. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Approved 5-0. The consent agenda, item C. Items on the consent agenda are considered under one motion and approved by one motion. Members of the governing body may remove items for separate discussion if desired. Members of the public may remove items identified as quasi-judicial for separate discussion if desired. Members of the public will be limited to 3 minutes for comments. And would any of the commission like to remove any items?
No, Mayor.
Not seeing any. Would any of the public like to remove the quasi-judicial item? Not seeing any. Sherry, can you go ahead and check on Zoom? Okay, bringing it back to us.
Move to approve the consent agenda?
Second.
Have a first and a second. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Approved 5-0. All right, that moves us on to item E, regular agenda items. Considering adopting the resolution number 7560, approving and appropriating the 2025 City of Lawrence operating budget, and adopting the 2025 to 2029 capital improvement plan.
There we go. All right. Good evening, City Commission. Allie Porter. I'm the budget manager. We are here tonight to consider adopting the 2025 City of Lawrence annual operating budget and the 2025 to 2029 CIP. Quick recap of our process. It seems like budget is year-round for us, but from a public standpoint, we really kicked off in May when we opened Balancing Act for the first time. You saw the proposed CIP in June, along with the recommended city manager's budget on July 9th. We then reopened Balancing Act for a second round of submissions, and then went through some of our requirements and public hearings with revenue neutral and the budget. We're here tonight, September 3rd, to consider adoption, and then we have to submit all our materials to the county by October 1. At our August 20th meeting, we received some direction from the commission on what to do with the budget, and they are as follows: to fund LDCFM to an operations count of 149 and add 1 deputy chief, partially restore funding to the police department for non-sworn personnel, reduce the market adjustment for non-labor group employees from 2% to 1% in the general fund, postpone the LDCFM Station 6 and Station 7 expansion in the CIP by 1 year, add playground replacements from the special recreation fund balance over our policy requirement, and then maintain a flat mill levy. So budget summary, this is what those changes look like. Across all funds, 518.7. The CIP with a first year of investment of 170.9 and a 5-year total of 529.4. Flat mill levy, and then it continues with that proposed increase of the affordable housing sales tax from 0.05% to 0.1%. Looking specifically at the general fund, again, the city's primary operating fund, you see 114.6 in revenue and then 116.2 in expenditures. And so that is a 1.5 million expenditures over revenue, and anticipates about $6.5 million under our fund balance policy. If I can get you to specifically look at this 200,000 here as an expenditure adjustment. So this is meant to reflect Commission's direction to adjust the market rate from 2% to 1% in the general fund. We anticipate that would be $200,000 in savings to the general fund. My caveat to all this is the general fund is the only place where we showed this market adjustment, but if Commission wants to move forward with the 1%, staff would recommend that it be all primary pay plan employees regardless of fund. Be an extremely high administrative burden to just do the general fund. So that's the only place that it's reflected here, but again, we would recommend it for all non-MOU employees. Fund balance outlook, we showed this in the last presentation, these different scenarios, so this is it updated. Ended 2023, this orange line here is our 90 days, and then the yellow line here is the 60-day minimum. So ended 2023 at our 90-day goal. We anticipated eating into fund balance in 2024 and now into 2025. And you can see us potentially below our 60-day minimum as early as our next budget cycle. Updated CIP to reflect some of the changes that we had talked about. Again, pushing out that LDCFM expansion by 1 year. And then we have swapped the South Park wading pool that is now unfunded and have funded the West Lawrence Spray Park. Service level impacts as part of this budget, as well as some reductions that you saw in 2024. There will be service level reductions as part of this budget, and it is worth noting that in many instances, these are due to a reduction in positions. So MSO, Planning and Development Services, as well as the Police Department listed here. Parks and Recreation, LDCFM, and internal services reductions listed here. However, we still have a very dedicated workforce. We are planning to do great things with the resources that we have, and so we've listed out some of the highlights of our core city services that will continue. Again, just some of the highlights couldn't possibly all fit on one slide. So looking ahead, not to be total doom and gloom, but I do think it's worth reiterating that the path that we are on, we just can't continue to rely on fund balance. And so we will immediately, with the passage of this budget, begin working on a long-range sustainable budget plan that will look to confront rising expenditures outpacing our revenues, that need for structural change, restoring our fund balance within our policy limits, and then obviously looking to the strategic plan and guiding that work that we do. So that is all that I have this evening. Happy to answer any questions.
All right. Before I start, can we keep down any sort of side conversations within the room? Really appreciate it. Any questions from the City Commission?
Mayor, I had a couple.
Okay.
Allie, I'm looking at page 105 of the packet presentation at the service level impacts. So just had some concerns with what the interpretation, or at least what it would look like in interpretation and implementation of some of the pieces under police with the slower no response time. So the reduced capacity for child and sexual assault investigations, and then some of with the diminished inability to respond to our mental health crisis with that program. I don't know if I assume.
We have our deputy
Adam's
chief.
in.
Yep.
Okay. I figured Adam would be here. Thank you. Deputy Chief, do you mind just speaking to what that looks like? If you can give high level, or if there's something you can share with that
Yes.
can look like, so not to create a little bit of pearl clutching or.
Yes. Discussion about slower or no response to non-priority calls. Part of the recommended 2025 budget does not include positions that we had in the past, teleserve, and what we were using, mobile teleserve, which is a community report technician who would go out and take a police report. And this is somebody who's not a sworn officer. We found it's another avenue that people can utilize the service when we were struggling to hire police officers. Simply, we don't have funding available to do that anymore. We do have the ability to process some online reports now, excuse me, and that is something we've worked with the city's app. It's also called C-Click Fix to offer some potential there, but it will be a reduction to which people will see some delays in what I should make sure everybody understands what we call lower priority calls. Call priority types 1 through 9, 9 being grass fire out in the county that nobody's likely to respond to unless it escalates, and then 1 being violence in progress with weapons kind of thing. So the next one, assist with child and sexual assault investigations. We have employed 2 civilians who work exclusively in our SVU. Those were they were opportunistic hires a few years ago. They were people from DCF backgrounds who did that work. One of those persons has elected to apply for and begin her career as a police officer. So that position was vacated. When we began making reductions in our budget, it seemed prudent to reduce positions that were unfilled rather than working on layoffs. We don't have budget to restart that position.
Right.
The next one, decreased opportunities for community police interactions and engagement. We previously had funding to run programs like our portion of the safety fair. We weren't solely in that. Police camp, Citizens Academy, things like that. We have no budget left for those type of deals. Additionally, those were usually staffed on overtime functions, just as a matter of need. We've had to reduce overtime in patrol and investigations, and it left no overtime to commit to this at this point. There was a question about community partners that may that is a possibility, but likely to fund camps and things like that is just an unknown. And then the last one, mental health crisis. We had in the past funded a Bert Nash co-responder. Again, when budgets were being created, that position had sat vacant for a few months. And given the budget constraints and our attempt to find sustainable reductions, that was not refilled and is not funded for next year.
Okay. Again, I appreciate just a little bit more shape around that, so
Yeah,
thank you.
absolutely. Thanks.
Any additional questions? All right, not seeing any, I'll open it up to public comment.
So while everybody was distracted by the fire department funding debacle and the appointments for the Community Police Review Board, something else happened behind the scenes. I sent a couple commissioners an email asking about this and why this was happening. But it seems that the housing budget, the housing solutions, the homeless solutions budget, it sure does look awful like that is getting just slid over underneath the city manager. Were you guys all aware of that happening? And is there a reason that we can't have that be out there as a division on its own so that we can measure it and actually see stuff? Because one of the things that we're demanding as advocates is to see the data, and what you're doing is you're making financial data harder to see when you're routing it through the city manager's office and just letting him write the checks instead of having it be budgeted line items. We've already seen where the will of the city manager is on this issue, and he's following his business community that line his pocket. But he ought to be looking for a different job because this isn't working. And when you guys are going to mask the money underneath his budget, and that was a nice little distraction that we had. Why is that not out there on its own line item? It really should be, because you're sinking close to $2-3 million into it this year. And then how much more? What did they say? 50? Was it 10 or 50 million, 20 million over the course of so many years? But in any case, that's money that's going into his realm to just do with what he wants. Okay? And at the same time, you have no accountability in that realm. You're not using your HMIS system to actually track how things are going. How much easier is that going to be with Craig in charge? He doesn't know anything about that, and he's not going to bother asking any of those questions about those public-facing reports. Where's the data? And where's the data for the reason for changing this over and giving it to Craig? Why are we doing that? And why is it that it can't be its own independent line item for some disclosure to the citizens? Very similar to the fire department's line item budget that Stephen Watts tried many times to get. The fire department can't produce a line item budget. Why is it that we have any department in this city that can't produce a line item budget? Why? It's part of the budgeting process. But we're giving them excuses. City staff is giving them excuses of why they don't need to do that, and then you're going to go ahead and approve them to do these things in addition to moving that money over under his wings instead of leaving it out in the open for the people to actually see. It's going to be hidden underneath the city manager. Is he going to be honest when he comes in here and talks about that? Because we know he has a tendency to shade the truth and lie about things.
Do I just talk now? Hi, I'm Jade Drum. I think that I've never been to one of these meetings, but there's a very important thing to me, and that's Amtrak. I live at Amtrak. I've been living at Amtrak for 5 years. I think the focus is too much on money and not becoming a community as one. I think that people are putting too much attention on Amtrak or on to camps or homelessness when we're not homeless. We go to bed at the same place every single night. We all do. We wake up every single morning. We all do. We go to breakfast every Tuesday and Friday. We all do. We are a family, we are a home, and we'd like for the whole community to come together and not us be singled out and bullied. Now, That's all I have to say. Thank you.
My name is Colin. From what I've gathered from the two people that just spoke before me, you guys have no real system that accurately places money where it's supposed to be, and so the public can review it, at least in key places, and they go under a city manager as far as responsibility of where that money goes.
We're not asking. Honestly, they could have bought us.
Excuse me, ma'am. Can we keep the comments to a minimum? Can we keep the comments to a minimum? Gentleman here's talking, please. Thank you.
When it comes down to it, if you're misappropriating money in which, you know, I imagine the homeless fall under, right? Because that's what I'm gathering, is that you guys do not have any means of actually tracking the money that you spend. Forgive me. I just want to get to. I've been here my whole life, and I hear that there's a new city project that's gonna cost a great deal of money. I've also heard that you guys the city of Lawrence received $500 million in a grant for homeless. Is that true? How many of you are from here? I'm processing this, I'm sorry. I'll come back.
Hello, how y'all doing this evening? My name is Garcia, they call me Toves. Okay, I came here 2017 and buried my mom. My mom was born and raised in Parnell, Missouri. You guys made me homeless, all right? You guys, I was in the wrong place at the wrong time. You guys gave me 2 years supervised probation where I couldn't go back home. Now, in 2 years, I've been fighting for my disability because I lost my toes doing storm cleanup for you guys here in Kansas. I'm not from here. I'm from California. That's where my home's at. But here's the deal. I'm living in Amtrak right now. I feel free more than anything that I have been free in my life. I'm just now finding myself. We're not asking for no help, no money. We're actually just asking for you guys to leave our nation alone so we can build it. We're not causing no problems or nothing. You know, you guys look at us like we're misfits, you know. We're homeless, we're misfits, we're addicts. Well, you know, sometimes people put people places where they don't want to be, but they gotta be there, you know? I had to become homeless to understand homeless. If you guys wouldn't have gave me unsupervised probation where I could transfer back home, I wouldn't be homeless. I wouldn't be in this situation. But now I'm fighting my disability. Once I get my disability, I would say adios, goodbye to you guys, because I will go back to California. But right now, I'm living at Amtrak. I'm taking care of people over there. We're not misfits. We are humans just like everybody else. We cut and bleed the same way, and we breathe the same air you guys do. But you know what? You guys look at us like we're misfits. But I tell you what, some of us misfits, as you guys call us, got more talent and more energy and more wisdom and knowledge than any of you guys with suits and ties. Thank you.
I hope you guys remember me. My name's Guy Drum, Jay Drum's dad. I'm just trying to save my home. That's it. I don't care about your money. I'm not trying to make a vendetta against you guys. I'm sorry if the anger from some has came across. Just if you put us out of that camp, it's not going to get rid of us. We will still be somewhere. The people you see downtown, aren't us. The people that disrupt, yell, that's not us. I just want to find a way for us to work together. That's all I want to do. Been there 4 years. It is my home. My home doesn't have a doorknob or light switches or a tent flap for right now. It is my home. I'm scared, and I don't get scared of anything. He's trying to see this from both sides. I thank your time. God bless.
Hi, guys. How's it going? There's a group outside with some opinions about the budget. Anyway, I think the budget should be put towards unhoused measures, honestly, if I'm really thinking about what kind of budgets we should be raising. Specifically avoid stuff like unnecessarily closing camps nearby or something hypothetical like that. Say hypothetically, if we were to just try to randomly close one of the largest camps in town a couple blocks away from us, I'd say that'd be a bad use of resources for our budget. And so if we could do less of that, that'd be great. If we could do maybe more programs that pull people directly off the street and give them homing, that'd be nice. But otherwise, I feel that the budget could be used more efficiently. It's difficult to say what, because Lawrence is a complicated system of checks and balances and programs that kind of run into each other, desperately trying to fix some of the same problems. But I think, I think we can refine it to a better direction, a new direction, a change direction from what we're currently doing. What direction that might be, I think will be heard by plenty of members in the community tonight. But a lot of you guys I know are part of the cause. I just think that we can do better with the budget. Thank you.
Hi. My name is Nico. I'm here to comment on the 2025 budget. I've been here several times before, And every time, I mean, honestly, when I look at you guys, it does not look like you care. It doesn't look like you care about the problems people bring up to you. I see y'all checking the clock over and over and over again. I'm tired of it. I'm so tired of it. And I know that there are people even more tired of it because the places that they're living, the places that they're staying in, are being demolished. I consider not coming today. Lately it feels pointless to stand in front of y'all and convince myself that you care, but I realize it'd make your job easier if your constituents stopped showing up to give you their thoughts, so here I am. I want to talk to you about the importance of community and showing up and how it should be your first approach to helping our unhoused neighbors, alongside destigmatizing homelessness before trying to end it. Before you cleaned up the North Lawrence camp by demolishing it, I had a conversation with a younger member of the Jacks Project who serves food to these people weekly. During one of my first times helping them serve food, since he was extremely familiar with the campers and the layout, he showed me around. He kept pointing out empty spaces and barren land, telling me how many people used to live there and talk to him and hang out before the city started kicking them out. I also noticed that the closest business to the camp, the North Lawrence camp, was about 2 parking lots away. With the way Lawrencians complained about it, I assumed Johnny's Tavern and the North Lawrence camp would be back to back. Around the same time campers were evicted, Lawrence passed an ordinance making it illegal to lie down or sleep in public places. And only a bit after that, more police were stationed in Mass Street to patrol up and down the sidewalks to make people feel safe. I can't imagine unhoused citizens felt safe or welcome before or after this development. When I went to serve food at Amtrak on April 15th, I saw campers that had walked or biked miles during an especially hot day because they got kicked out of North Lawrence. And there wasn't a plan or resources for them. I know someone that I saw one day on Mass Street, and when I asked them how they were doing, they immediately broke down. They told me that they used to enjoy sticking around Mass Street for human connection, but they've been scared for their safety lately because people have been especially aggressive. They had been spit on, stabbed at, shot at with a BB gun, and more. I am saying all this because I read through the homelessness report, all 20 pages. And it feels like your intent isn't to help others out of a systematic problem, but to appease those that complain they have to see it. There are groups and community members who work their asses off to validate and that struggle and to make space for the pain and grief these people are feeling, and who are working with minimal resources to get campers food, clothing, and transportation because America and Lawrence has failed them. Y'all intend to fix the housing crisis by 2028, but you're kicking campers out while you also acknowledge you don't have the resources to do that. You say it in the report, you don't have the resources to do that. So why are you kicking people out before you have a plan put in place to help these people? Because as I see it right now, what you're doing is sticking them in more hazardous conditions. You're
Nico, that's
splitting
your time.
families up.
That's your time.
Yeah, thanks for the 3 minutes.
Hello, my name is Tristan Rethman, and I've lived here all my life, and I can honestly say Lawrence is one of my favorite places in this country. I've spent a lot of time traveling around, mostly in my van, and I returned here because I miss the trees, honestly. Nowhere else has the trees like Lawrence does, and it provides a lot of good. But I'll keep my comments to the budget and comment on the housing crisis we have in Lawrence and the homeless population. I believe that the budget would be very well served by a housing first solution. It's been proven domestically and foreign that is the cheapest and most efficient strategy in the long term. That's all I have to say, and I hope you consider our complaints.
I'm Charlene Wells. I know that you are putting a certain amount of resources into doing different things. Quite what they're doing, I don't quite understand. But they were supposed to be doing some kind of data collection. Something that I wonder about is, are we really assessing people that is called the vulnerability index and focusing on those people? I mean, that's not clear to me at all. Because I guess he says people are being chased around downtown. I see somebody that, since talking about money, I remember Jill Dolliker said, well, don't talk about the past. There was somebody that we housed 25 years ago in a little peer program, and that person has been homeless, I think most of the, not all, but most of the 25 years since then. And the last few times I've seen this person, he's just laying all the time in front of one of the closed storefront businesses, just laying there, most of the time, doing nothing. I mean, I see other people like that I have seen for years homeless. And I just somehow, and they are local people here that I've seen for years, somehow it does not seem to me that people are focusing on the people that need the help the most. Instead of chasing people around out of these camps, some of whom seem like they can sort of survive on their own, you have people that just look really in bad shape, just sitting and staring off in space. What that's about, I don't know. I, on the other hand, contrary to what some people say, I think you all do care. I think you are blamed for a problem which you did not create. It's like what has happened. I looked at Pittsburgh, Kansas. Their county out there, they've only got 40,000 people. They've got 200 people that are homeless. It's like anybody that really tries to actually help people, well, then they attract all the people that nobody else wants. And I even heard some Christian guys say, well, ready to get rid of the undesirables. Christian people are talking that way about our homeless people. I'm just stunned. People say we're a Christian nation. I'd like to see it happen. And the middle class, maybe it's coming back, has been kind of demolished in the United States, and then we've kind of created a permanent underclass. I don't know what else to say about that. It's not your fault. You get blamed for something you did not create.
My name is Dr. Justin Spees. How is talking shit on Christians germane to the budget here? Why is she allowed to come up here and just talk piss poorly about Christians during a budget item? Could somebody explain that to me? The germane to the topic, which is the budget, and she's talking about Christians. How is that germane? Can you please explain that? To all of us, really. I mean, it's not just for me, it's for everybody. How are we supposed to know? I mean, as far as I could tell, most people aren't even talking about things that are germane to the budget, but that in particular, Christians are allowed to be talked about during the budget. Comment. Why didn't you stop her, Bart? Why didn't you stop her? Don't care about Christians? Probably felt good to hear that. About how heartless Christians are. Has nothing to do with the budget, but probably felt pretty good to hear that, right? So why not allow that? You guys like to hear that. Christians are an easy target. Can I get an answer, please? Attorneys, can I get an answer, please? Talking shit on Christians applies to the budget in which way? So can I talk about how good Jesus is right now? Those Christians that she says are talking shit about, the homeless, I imagine love Jesus. And why wouldn't they? Jesus promises us so much. And he always follows through on his promises. He promises us words and wisdom. He promises to be our strength and our shield and our sword. So how is what I'm saying right now even germane to the budget right now? Why aren't you stopping me? I really want to know the answer to these questions. It makes it really hard to know what you can talk about in here. Would you have stopped her if she was talking about Muslims or Jews? Would you have found that that violated your decorum policy, standing up here denigrating an entire religion for no reason? Would that violate your decorum policy? I find it very offensive that you allowed that.
I've lived here for 22 years, and in my opinion, this is the most destructive budget I've ever witnessed. We're in the midst of a recession. The Dow Jones was down 626 points today, and we have a city manager that is proposing the largest tax increase in 50 years. This is headed down Jackass Alley. Anyone that sits in those seats are not leaders. You are elected representatives. You are elected by we the people. You're responsible to us. We have inalienable rights, life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness that comes from our Declaration of Independence. Anytime any form of government is destructive to those ends, it is the right and the duty of we the people to abolish that form of government and furnish a new one. We cannot go on like this. You are destroying this town. And I know as sure as I'm sitting here, there's about a 100% chance that you're going to pass this budget, because it's just like a bunch of dead fish up on a beach. Nobody has a backbone to say no when somebody is so off base. I'm asking you to reconsider, even though I know I'm probably barking up a tree. But anytime you're riding a dead horse, your first mode of attack should be dismount. Go another direction. Thank you.
Patrick Ross, 66049. I have a poem I want to read here. I promise it gets at some of the issues of the budget, even if it's a bit more artistic. It's called Lawrence Food Stamps 2025 Operating Budget. What if you didn't have a lot of money? What would you value? What would you seek to inspire? Or what would you seek to inspire? Would you dream for more? Would you sit on a corner with your hand out? Would you hold a sign that says anything helps? Would you live in a 64 square foot space? Would you move in if your family couldn't come with you? Oh wait, you don't have ID, so you can't come in. Did I ask if you were a felon already? What did you do again? Well, drugs aren't that bad. Alcohol is a poison and it's legal and everyone does it. I thought you were going to say something like how you use Lawrence's tax money to buy jet skis and other personal items, or didn't properly dispose of asbestos, or threw building materials away into the river. It's not like you did anything like that, right? If you bought a golf course and couldn't pay for it, would you donate it to the city for the tax write-off? If you were said city, would you take grant money to clean that heavily herbicide polluted land by simply planting native plants and grasses? Did you know plants are intelligent? Did you know they talk to each other, have memory, and feel? Would you take the food and medicine they provide you? If you had $3.06 million, would you entertain the idea of paying the unhoused to cultivate native lands, preserve open spaces, and manage organic farming in coordination with other nonprofits? Would you let them live in a tent if they wanted to? Could you tolerate that if they provided food and medicine for the community and helped the environment? Would you coordinate aid from nonprofits if that workforce needed it? Would you revel alongside your community in the audacity of that dream? Or would you cave to public pressure of wasting money on issues related to the unhoused in the face of a budget shortfall of your own doing? Would you close Martin Park and its 19 acres when it was donated to you with the understanding that the land can only be used as a public park because the Martins had foresight to preserve the natural habitat for others to enjoy, as quoted on the city's website? Do you believe public parks and open spaces provide equity? Would you entertain the argument that they provide the community with diversity and inclusion? Essentially what I'm asking is, would you buy food with your food stamps, Dillon's or Hy-Vee, or are you a Walmart guy or gal? Thank you very much.
My name is Sue Herring. I've been up here many times talking to you, asking you for different things. Tonight, I want to follow up with what Michael talked about the amount of money under Craig Owens' discretion that has no accountability, no line itemization. How this could be allowed defies anyone's ability to comprehend it. So tonight I want to stand here and look at all of you and hope you remember that before I've told you that if you're lucky enough to live as long as I have, you've got a lot of years ahead of you regretting what you do today. I don't know if you ever saw the movie Princess Bride. It's one of my favorites, where the princess has a bad dream. She's got all the population below her, and this old, haggy-looking crone of a lady comes up and points her out and calls her, I forget the name, but anyway, calls her out. It's a nightmare for her. I want to be that nightmare for you. Because allowing Mr. Owens the liberties with that kind of money with no accountability, there is absolutely no excuse. If you had any backbone, if you had any fear for the future and how you're going to view yourselves, you'd fire him tonight. Thank you.
Hello. I'm a college student from KU, and I'm very concerned about our local budgets. It's something, especially how the city is using those fundings to hurt those who are most vulnerable. I would personally like to see how, the city is managing their funds, how the city is using and allocating their funds towards the removal and sweeps of the encampment. I think it is very important for our community to understand that the pain of those who are unhoused is also the pain of us. After all, one bad day, we could all end up in their position begging for food and being harassed by police. It is very important that we should know where our money is going, especially since how much taxes we pay. It is incredibly important, and it is our civic duty to understand how our government functions, no matter if it's federal, state, or local. And I believe that as our civic responsibility and civic duty to not only our government, but to our fellow citizens, we should know how the money is being spent. We should have the ability to recognize the transparency of the city before it spends any taxpayers' money on sweeping homeless encampments, instead of actually spending more money on enforcement of ridiculous rules such as loitering or just even standing outside asking for food. We should instead start funding housing initiatives, allowing people to get themselves back on their feet, allowing them the ability to live their lives, not to be dictated by the police. I think that is something that is incredibly important, and we should strive for it. Not only as, again, a civic duty to our fellow people, but again, to the city. I mean, think about how much money Lawrence would have to spend on excess funding for anti-homelessness infrastructure when simply having housing vouchers can be much more cost-effective. It's more effective to take the more humane and responsible approach than it is to be totalitarian and to be oppressive towards the unhoused. It's simple maths. It's a lot easier to spend money on housing, something that can build equity for people, than to spend money on a brutal police force that spends their time, instead of talking about very important issues that are occurring all throughout the city, are harassing people who don't have the means to fight back. And that's pretty much all I have to say. I think it is very important that we have transparency in how our budget is being handled. It is our civic responsibility and civic duty to do so. Thank you.
Not seeing any additional comments here in the room. Sherry, would you? Oh.
Hi. So I have some thoughts on the current budget here. I haven't lived in Lawrence that long. I've only been here since spring, but well, the thing that concerns me about the current budget so far is the what seems to be the effort, the lack of efforts towards community funding the community, particularly when it comes to the homeless population or unhoused, whatever the term is. It seems pretty disturbing to me, even just as a new resident, how little thought is being given to the unhoused population of Lawrence. How most money being spent on them is being towards police presence and clearing out camps, and just sort of shunting the problem away, passing the buck, as it were. It seems pretty the cruelty against humanity aside, it seems pretty economically irresponsible to just be pouring money towards just pushing the problem away rather than actually facing it, actually putting money towards initiatives that towards initiatives that will go towards housing these people, because really that's the problem. They don't have houses, they don't have homes. You should give them homes, is what I think, at least. if you're not really solving the problems here, you know, and at least in that regard, is you're just passing the buck. You know, this isn't a problem that's going to go away. It's just a problem that, you know, if you continue this current strategy, you're just going to get more totalitarian and authoritarian. You know, you're just spending more towards the presence to push these people out rather than, you know, actually serve the community, as it were. That's all I have to say.
Sean Coffey, 66049. Wanted to start off by telling you thank you for all your work on this extremely difficult process to get through. I know it took a lot of time on your parts and city staff to get it done, so thank you for all your work. I appreciate it. I wanted to comment related to the fire department and the 4-person staffing. I was glad to see that. It's a little bit, I feel like we won the game but lost the series, because I hated to see the delay in the stations be put off another year as we've gone through this. Your fire department's been internationally accredited since 2008. And for the longest time, we were the only department in the city that was accredited. I think since that time, maybe MSO, Parks and Rec, and the police department's working on accreditation. But we've been that way since 2008. Just to let you know, every year, a lot of hours.
I hate to interrupt you right now. Sherry, can you go ahead and stop it? I think Sean has approximately a little bit over 2 minutes left. Tony, can you please let those folks know that, you know, we're not able to go ahead and have those signs up there?
The fire department was allowed certain point of order.
No, they weren't.
Yes, they were.
No, they weren't. They were asked to remove them.
They were allowed to be held up to the.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
I have video of it.
Mayor,
You are correct.
as long as
I
they're holding
apologize.
them,
Discrimination, another one.
please, as long as they were holding them and not taking
Yes.
them and not blocking the door.
Okay, that's clarification. I'm sorry, I misremembered. So, go ahead and continue, Sean.
Thank you. Anyway, I draw your attention to this, the standard of cover for 2022 the Fire Medical Department did for accreditation. It's full of great amount of that 4-letter word that I hate, data. Everybody wants data now. This has it in here, and it tells why we need additional fire stations. Right now, our travel time for the first unit, this is travel time, is right at 6 minutes. Total response time for the first unit to get on scene is 8 minutes and 45 seconds. Effective response, that means all the trucks show up on the scene, 14 minutes and 8 seconds. We can meet that in Planning Zone 3, which is in the northwest part of the city, 50% of the time. I'd also, again, draw your attention to the station optimization study. The current station alignment plan we're working on was developed in 1996. Going through some additional records I found, digging in my old records at home, from 2017, I found recommendations to construct a fire station number 6 to provide reliable coverage to the rapid growth in the northwestern part of the city. That was in 2017. And also mentioned fire station number 7. And in that station optimization and analysis, if you'll take a look at that, it shows where we are currently. This is not future growth. This is where we are now. 2006 was the last time a fire station was built in the city of Lawrence. We need stations now, and they've been put off too long. The fire departments have adopted a lot of innovative things, Opticon system, AVL dispatching, all those things. But remember, this isn't about EMS calls or fire calls. This is about travel time, how fast we can get there. But thank you for all your work. I appreciate you maintaining the 4-person staffing.
Mr. Baston?
Hi, David Baston. Where do I start? I appreciate you in the last meeting asking the city manager to go over to not exceed the revenue neutral rate and have him work that stuff up, and all your suggestions to him, and I specifically like Lisa's comment about going through all the different programs and trying to find some places that we don't need, even though we had a little pushback from Amber there. But I do appreciate that we are trying to listen to the people. From what I gathered at the last meeting, people are hurting, as you can tell. We do want a little bit more accountability in them programs. So, I mean, surely that's an easy thing to do. So we would like more of that. And yeah. I do appreciate with the firefighters too. Hopefully, I got here a little late, so I didn't get the whole gist of the story. But I think you're going to leave the 4 men per truck. So I definitely appreciate that, and it's definitely a huge plus not cutting those things out. Yeah, just. There are so many ways that, I mean, if we do end up looking at all these different programs from all the different departments, there's tons of stuff that I even see with street department and those crews that there's tons of wasted money, even with the millions and millions of dollars we have on consultants. I mean, believe it or not, back in the day, the heads of those departments used to oversee those things and come up with different plans and have their employees do a lot of the stuff that we pay millions and millions of dollars to other companies, which I'm sure they make money. So in doing that, I mean, this is just a little bit I know of the things that I've done. There's tons of ways to save money. Yeah, and if we look at every department and have the department heads actually see where they can save money instead of this is what we've got to spend, let's spend that. And I know I've know a lot of people that's worked for the city over the 55 years I've been here. Some of them still work there in supervisory roles, and there's, yeah, they don't even get asked that, so.
Time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Weston.
Good evening. Simon Stevenson, Secretary of IFF, Local 1596. I want to start off and I want to say thank you for the restoration of the people to the fire department. That was a choice to keep the citizens of Lawrence safer than the original proposal. And I want to thank you guys for that. Retired Fire Chief Sean Coffey came up and he spoke a little bit about fire stations and expansions of it. And that is true, but it's not the stations that save people, it's the people. So the idea of reducing people to build a building is not going to get us where we need to go. So I understand we need stations, but people are where we need to be at to start with. With that being said, as a labor leader here in Lawrence, I do have a little bit of concern pitting us against the rest of the city employees by decreasing their salary increases from 2% to 1% next year, especially when CPI in the last 12 months was 2.9%. So that raises a little bit of concern with me. And I just want you guys to think about that a little bit as well. Other than that, I appreciate all your hard work, and thank you very much.
My name is Dustin Bolt. I actually spoke over the video chat during the winter when you opened up the emergency shelters. Some of you guys actually agreed with us and helped us out. Thank you very much for that. I appreciate that. They did a lot for us, and I'm pretty sure you saved a few lives in doing so. But as far as the Amtrak thing and closing it down is it's one of those things that it just doesn't go away. And man, sorry, I drew a blank. But No, it just the problem doesn't go away. Pushing them out of there is going to make it harder. Shipping them out, finding other communities to send them to, it's not the right thing. You kind of almost in a way you need Amtrak there for those individuals to exhaust themselves. It's a part of society for them to go to almost seek asylum in a way, and not that they're fleeing any kind of like danger or anything like that, but just, and trust me, I wish that people would, treat that with respect as much as they should, and be, I've been homeless in a few different places in the United States, and a lot of places don't have it like Lawrence has it. And I wish that people would actually treat it with the respect that it's being offered, because they have something great here. We have something that a lot of places, other places in the United States does not have. And that's what I'm saying. As part of my part of society, where I come from, Amtrak, and helping the people out there, and even with your guys as part of the society and what you guys do for us or help us out with, there is a solution for everything, and that's why we as Amtrak or the homeless community, the displaced community, we have the ability to work with you guys, and you guys work with us. So it would meet us in a middle mark. We have the ability, unlike other places in the United States. So if we have that opportunity to do so, then we should do as that, utilize that opportunity to find a solution for this, where we can both meet each other halfway, so we can be an example for other places or other cities or other displaced communities throughout the United States. That's really what I have to say from all this. Especially data funding aside, do what's right. We have the opportunity to do so, and we should do that.
Hi, my name is Jessica Roberts. I probably look like Jen Woolsey, so I'm here speaking on part of her, and also to talk about the budget. We actually have some comments. We did do an open letter today to the Lawrence Times. A lot of the information that we're wanting is we want to see data. And I think that we need the city to be transparent and start requiring the data be shown on how the programs and the funding that has already been provided from the city is actually helping our unhoused neighbors. There are a couple of comments here, like stop giving the homeless division money in the 2025 budget until they show the data to prove. They use an HMIS system. They are supposed to be utilizing that system as part of any HUD funding, and all of the providers are supposed to be working with that system. And every time we ask for the data to see what the actual outcomes, the feel goods are not the best. We want to know the data. We want you guys to ask them, where is the data that shows that these projects and these programs are successful? Because we're not seeing it on the streets. The advocates are not seeing it. I was there when Tent City closed. I call it Tent City because that's what the unhoused call it. We were there. The advocates were out there. I will tell you, the day that that camp closed, not one housing person was out there. Not one. And I saw all the equipment and everything, and I'm sure it cost a lot of money. And the fact of the matter is now we're talking about sweeping another camp, but I can let you know that the people that, at least 50% of the people that were from Tent City are now either at Amtrak, Bircham, or Sandra Shaw. So the services are not working. We need to see the data from the team. And if we're going to continue to fund them, I think right now it's under the city manager's budget, we need a breakdown. We want to know how much money they're actually getting, and then we need to see outcomes, not just these feel-good stories that are in the paper about this individual. We want to know how many people they're actually addressing and how many people are getting the wraparound services that they're talking about, because we're not seeing it. So really quick, closing a camp when the services aren't there is only harmful. Best practices say all the time, it is harmful to close a camp if you do not have the resources in place. That's all I've got.
Sir, can you please refrain from clapping in here?
I'll be clapping online.
All right. Sherry, on Zoom.
There'll just be a little bit of a delay there. I'm getting folks moved over. Stephen Watts.
Thank you. You know, the money's given to a not-for-profit so the town commission can wash its hands of the homeless issue, as well as town staff can do the same, as the not-for-profit works in private under no mandate to allow any manner of public participation, and they don't. Moving on, Ms. Larson spoke last week to the idea of doing this entire budget process differently, and I think that has a great deal of merit in beginning it earlier, even though, as like children would say, we've never done it that way, which is sort of the battle cry for Lawrence, Kansas, administratively and progressively. We've never done it that way. You know, the fact each of you have evidently chosen to do without line item budgets is amazing. And, you know, I get you really don't want us out here in the pesky public analyzing budgetary matters down to the nth degree. I understand that. At the same time, you got to start getting used to it, I think. You know, prior town commissions went over the budget one line at a time. Here in public, sitting there and the bench, yada, yada, yada. Yeah, it took 4 or 5 hours. It took a while. But that's what we have to do. It's critical and important work. It's not technical work. It's critical and important work. I'm sorry that you don't see it that way. I do understand you really don't want a pesky public watching all of this and taking time to do it. The entire system has been built on not having public participation. But here it is. It's coming more and more. Anyway, go ahead and vote yes for everything. That's going to happen. Thanks.
Jen Woolsey.
Hi, how are you? I didn't realize my sister was going to be there to talk for me, but I want to go ahead and show up myself. People keep asking, why do I keep showing up? The answer is because people keep calling me. The unhoused keep reaching out to me and asking me for help, even though they have a whole city team that's now available to them on the streets that can help them. So I'm not sure why I keep getting those calls and those requests. But I'm glad this is recorded because I think this might be the first time I'll ever say this. I agree with Commissioner Larson. I absolutely 100% agree with her statement that she made last week about that it's time to go through every single program and find out what is going on with them. I noticed that the budget for the city manager's office has increased by more than half. And people were calling me, asking me where the Homeless Solutions Division money was. Where is all that information at? And it took me a minute and some help from some other advocates to identify where it was. And of course, you've already been mentioned it, but y'all will see it. You know, you don't really see where it was moved over, but it's on page 9 of 166. You know, where we see that increase, and we can identify through the transfer of the special alcohol funds and also the state grant, which is the 65,000, I think it was, that is the KDAD's grant. So we know for a fact that that money has gotten switched over to under the city manager's budget, which of course there's no accountability for that. Earlier, someone said something about data, and data is annoying, right? It is. I can go and get my new driver's license and they look at me and they ask me, has anything changed in the last 6 years? And I always look at them and say, no, my weight has not changed, right? Have we all been guilty of doing that? But we all know that if they actually put me on a scale, my weight has changed in the last 6 years. Thankfully, they're not holding me accountable. Are y'all holding these divisions accountable? Are you holding the Homeless Solutions Division accountable? Are you asking them for the data? Again, there is a homeless management information system. I don't expect y'all all to become subject matter experts in this, but in their plan, A Place for Everyone, they mention this system. So if the data is being collected and there's supposed to be a dashboard as of April 2024, where is it? Where's the data? Because again, as you've said, or you've heard, we're not seeing the data on the streets, but maybe we're wrong. Data is great because data has the opportunity to showcase really good work. It also has the opportunity to showcase failures. So if the Homeless Solutions Division is standing by that they're spending money and that the money that the taxpayers are spending is going to success, then show it to us. Brag on yourself. We want to see it.
Time, Jim.
Unfortunately, thank you.
If there's anyone else on Zoom who would like to make public comment, please raise your hand. We do have another one, Maris.
Okay. Did Mo already make public comment?
Mo Horowitz.
Oh, I just thought the name looked familiar. I'm not sure.
Sorry, I forgot to unmute. Hi, my name is Mo Horowitz, and thanks for letting everybody speak tonight. I just want to very quickly say that everybody deserves a home where they're safe, and I think it's really cruel to close the Amtrak camp when we don't yet have nearly enough affordable housing in Lawrence. We need a fully funded housing first solution, and we need a lot more transparency and accountability. Please listen to the people who are unhoused when they tell you what they need. Thank you very much.
That's all the comments, Mayor.
All right, I'll bring it back to us for further budget discussions. I'm sorry, sir.
You allowed people to come in just a week ago after, seriously, talk about discrimination.
We need to go ahead and talk about the budget. You would be allowed to go ahead and talk about in public comment a little bit later, so. Yeah, thank you. So, I believe we have some medical personnel, fire and medical personnel.
Your firefighters just went out there.
Yeah. Thank you, sir, for letting us know.
Wait, what? I missed that.
Okay. Are we good to continue? Okay. Bringing it back to us for a budget discussion. And would anybody like to open this up and start with it?
I guess I'll start. I mean, obviously, I think we did a lot of work on the budget 2 weeks ago. I appreciate staff bringing this back to us based upon our direction. You know, I'm certainly happy we got a zero mill increase. Oops, I knocked that off. A zero mill increase, but I also agree that we don't have a long-term sustainable budget. So I look forward to that work going forward. As I said 2 weeks ago, I guess, you know, I do believe we need the additional fire stations because of the response time, but I also think we have to find a way to get there in a fiscally responsible manner, not the 7 or 14 mills that might require without looking deep into that fire and medical budget. So just like I think we have to look deep at all the budgets and how all our departments operate, I think we have to have that same look at the fire and medical division and work with the county and work with our partners to figure out what that looks like going forward. And I look forward to that discussion in the coming years. Certainly, I think there's a lot of cuts in this budget that I'm not real excited about. But on the other hand, we have to balance that with what money we have. And so, I look forward to working with all our staff working together and providing the best services we can within this budget. So I'm going to support what we brought forward from last time. I appreciate the Commissioner Finkel's comments. I'm excited that staff was able to bring us back and work through some of the requests that were made by several of the commissioners here on the dais, and for most of them,
I am in support of. I did state 2 weeks ago, and I'll state again tonight, I'm not in support of reducing the adjustment on raises for staff from 2% to 1%. We just heard tonight the complexity of that, and then having to look at that across the board for other departments, which could be some savings, but it's a savings that I don't feel like is enough to warrant us taking it away. And looking at what it is from a 200,000, having spoken and being in that position, and I know that we're having to look at what we need to do, fine-tuning, changing processes. Speaking to that, I do get that, and I think we all get that. But I think there's something to be said in the face of when we're looking at the market, but we're also looking at our staff and how do we stay in competition with other communities, and looking at what we're taking away, what we're voting on, and what we're going to vote on, that just weighs differently for me, and I don't think it's worth. I don't think it's worth the vote. And so I'm not in support of that. I would like for us to have consensus on where we sit with that before we go to a vote, because I'm not going to vote against a budget because it has something in it that I don't like. I think we're smart enough to be able to work through that, and if we need to pull that out before we vote on the budget, we can do that if provisions need to do that. I don't want to vote. I want to not vote on a budget when I know I approve of it, but there's one aspect of it that I don't. So, but again, as far as everything that's been presented to us, I'm in support of, minus the cost reduction. I'd like for that to be added back into the budget. And I think we're looking at like a 0.134 mil. So that does take us slightly over revenue neutral in the amount of 0.12. But I think at this current crossroad, that's needed.
Any discussion regarding what Commissioner Sellers has stated?
Not for me. No, sir.
I stayed where I'm at.
Okay. Well, yeah, there's certain aspects that, I might take in a different direction on this budget, but overall, get us to a point to go ahead and pass it. I'm with the sentiment of it. I know all these budget discussions are hard, and budget season is difficult, especially this year, and questions coming from the coming years, and these austerity measures will only work for so long. So we're probably going to have deeper discussions about what we're going to have to do in the future regarding services and resources. I want to commend the staff for putting this budget together and working on this, especially taking into account our previous strategy from previous years, because I know we've been a bit reticent to make cuts, so that was taken into account, giving us the options available. So I really appreciate that. And that gave us the opportunity to go ahead and shape the budget given our circumstances. So I don't want to discount as well the incredible progress we made over the last couple of years. We invested more in infrastructure, staff, and then also housing at all levels and economic development. So and that's part of our effort to, I think, overall introduce a little bit more commercial into what we do, because roughly, I think I looked at it, we are like 73% residential, 15% tax exempt, 12% commercial. So those numbers are way out of whack. So because commercial is assessed at, I think, twice the rate of residential. So if we can figure out a way to kind of reverse those numbers a little bit, that should reduce the burden on residential quite a bit. So although that is a long-term measure, an interim, kind of what Vice Mayor Dever and Commissioner Larson have said, that we probably need to have some hard discussions about what we want to do in terms of services and resources and how that reflects in the budget, and also execution of those discussions, just to make sure that we don't have staff going ahead and making those, giving us those proposals without actually following through on them. So, as I said before, I think we've worked pretty hard to go ahead and get to this point, so I will approve it. But I just wanted to go ahead and put that out there that we've definitely got some conversations down the line.
Before we go to vote, I do believe we had several folks from the community come out, and I want to make sure, as a point of personal privilege, to thank them for coming out to speak about how we talk about big A and little a affordable housing, especially as it relates to our houseless community. What I heard tonight, for me, helps me understand that we are trying to connect as a community. We're not quite connecting, we're building something with the Legos and it's looking a little funky right now. Because I'm hearing things, but we're not necessarily hearing the totality of a lot of the work that we're doing, or how it's being interpreted by the city and by those who represent the city in that work. And there's something to be said about that. I think all things, look, if we plan, do, study, act, we've now studied, we've acted upon it, now we need to go back and plan about how do we do better about ensuring that folks are catching information in its totality, or where to go to get that information in its totality. As I talked about defined terms, we talked about that 2 weeks ago. I heard a lot about necessity, necessary, essential. And those things mean different things to different people in different contexts. So in a budget, essential is different to someone of affluency than it might be to someone who is unhoused. Essential may be different terminology to someone who may be impacted by infrastructure that may impact where a creek may turn or pivot in their community as it relates to whether or not we have code that encourages housing that meets the needs of the people and not the needs of one's internal policy or capitalistic endeavors. So, and I heard that again tonight. I heard words like accountability and transparency. And I'm not saying that there's multiple definitions to those terms. I think within the context of which folks are speaking to them, to their community, it's important. And I think what that tells me as a commissioner is that as we talk about, and sometimes we flagrantly use the word community engagement, which has become a dog whistle, we need to talk about community experience. And what are we doing as a community to ensure that one's community experience as it relates to affordable housing and houselessness is being heard, is being captured, is being operationalized in the work that we do, in the products that we produce for the community. And so that is a charge for us as commissioners to push that. And that's what I heard tonight. I think some of us move at it at a different pace than others. Some of us may have a more higher need of urgency to do it than others. Some of us may not be, I talk about caring and believing. It's something they care about, but they don't believe in it. And I think that can be acknowledged as well, because we see that in our community. And I think once us as a unit of commissioners are able to recognize that amongst ourselves, we'll be able to move at these things at a way that the community sees that we are actually doing the work. So I think sometimes there's that sense that it's not happening, and we know it's happening. Sometimes we get lost in words of being able to articulate that. So again, I appreciate hearing that in the context of this budget. It does give us additional to look at and to be better accountability partners to you. And so I wanted to make sure that I acknowledge that for the folks who took the time to come and speak to us, to email us, to reach out, and also to have advocates come and share that on their behalf. So wanted to make that known. Thank you.
I just kind of have two questions. Craig, I just wanted to just ask you a question. I know we talked about this individually about the increases in the city manager budget from year to year. And if I know that came up several times, and I wanted to make sure that came, at least we clarified for the public how that arrived, how we arrived at that number. And then simultaneously, or after that, I can address the other question with you.
Yeah, the short answer is we just moved those functions from the planning department directly under Brandon McGuire, assistant city manager, so that there was a closer supervision, and planning had their hands full, obviously, with the things that they've been doing on those paths. That's the short answer.
And how does the transparency vary between those two departments, where the money would have spent within planning versus in your department?
It's all one budget. We handle all of those dollars the same way. Our auditors and accounting standards require us to report all of those things, and we also put everything into the data portal, open data portal, which is available online. You see at the same time the citizens do and we do.
Okay, and then I wanted to agree with Commissioner Sellers. I appreciate the feedback on how we're doing as far as serving. I know that the community took it on as a responsibility, and we're trying to do and provide the services as advertised. I know we're falling short. I hear from people all the time that we're not doing all we can with the resources we have, whether they're, have a deep knowledge of how it works or that's just their opinion. I don't know, because I'm not them, but I do get a sense that we can do better with our resources, and I think we all need to dig in, and I think get a better understanding of how we're managing the dollars and how making sure those wraparound services really exist, because as many have pointed out, if we start displacing people and we don't have a way to care for them, then we're just kicking the can down the road, and we don't want to do that. I think we're trying to actually create and help people. So if we can all focus on that as commissioners, I think it's important we can work on the efficiency and the use of the dollars, and the transparency will be there if we do so. So thank you.
I would echo that. I appreciate folks coming in and letting us know, and it definitely gives us impetus to create a way for the information to be more accessible and attainable for folks so that we can be more transparent. Go ahead, Commissioner.
Okay. Well, I do want to thank staff for the work that they put into this, and definitely all the folks who have come out and spoke on this issue. The probably hundreds of emails I've received about it. I'm sorry I couldn't answer all of them, but I received some very thoughtful ideas on it. As far as the budget goes, I'm still struggling with it. I'm concerned about whether or not, whether we could have cut more as far as actual programs, and I know we've talked about doing that, looking at that hard next year, but whether that could have been something that could have been done this year, I would have liked to have seen that, more work done on that. But I do think if we're going to cut extra programs, we need to be talking to those folks ahead of time, or look at cutting programs. We need to talk to those folks ahead of time, and just make sure they're aware of what needs to be done. And I'm also concerned with this budget about what it potentially does, since we're drawing down so much funds, what it could potentially do to our bond rating. And if we are downgraded in our bond rating because we've used so much of our reserves, then that impacts how what it costs us to borrow money, the interest rates, and that could have a long-term significant impact on the costs for our infrastructure programs that we've really worked hard to build that up. And so I'm really concerned about that. And as far as there's some programs out there that I saw that I think are something I definitely want to look at next year. We're charging some entities for a service, but not charging other entities for a service, and I question that. And then also we are funding agencies that, whether or not it's in our purview to be funding those, and especially when the agency has got reserves that are significantly above what their even budget is. I'm concerned about that. Why are we funding those? And whether or not that's even in our purview. And the one department I've started to look at closely is the health department. And they've run a budget of about $4 million a year, but they've got a fund balance of over about $5 million. So why do they have such a hefty fund balance like that? And so that's something I'm going to be looking at, programs where we're maybe funding those, whether we should be, whether it's even within our strategic plan. I'm going to be looking at that. So for this budget for 2025, I'm not going to support it. I'm really concerned about the long-term sustainability. I know we're going to work on that next year, but I think that we could have maybe gone a little deeper this year on cuts. Call for the vote?
Yeah. All right.
Do we need to clarify the 1% to make sure I know Commissioner Solis had a question, but I think also staff had a question about the 1% across the board versus just the general fund. And I think I want to make it clear, I think the recommendation from the city is the 1% across the board, and just make sure that's included in this discussion.
We did, that's correct, as she stated, and just want to make sure that that's your understanding as well before you vote.
May I? So I think I heard there was $200,000 estimate. It was all placed into a single line item, although the funds were coming from different places. Is that kind of what you were getting at? That these dollars may be coming from different locations or different budgets, but they're all showing up in one place?
No, that would be $200,000 to the general fund. So there would be, in our other funds, additional amounts that we have not calculated.
It's not in the original, not in your original calculation?
Correct.
That would then add to the decrease in our deficit if we were to distribute that 1% to the other offices that you're speaking of, other budgets that you're speaking of?
It will have a reduction to our total budget, but not to our general fund.
Mm-hmm. For the total budget, right?
Yes.
So there's a further reduction.
Yes.
Yes, in the budget. Okay, thank you.
Okay, then I'd move, with that clarification, I move to adopt resolution number 750, approving and appropriating the 2025 City of Lawrence operating budget and adopt the 2025 to 2029 capital improvement plan as presented.
I second that motion.
I have a first and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Nay. Nay.
Okay. Budget passes. 3 in the affirmative, 2 in the negative. Or nay, sorry. Okay. Thank you all for all your work on this budget process. I know it's been a long process, and hopefully we'll have some information to go ahead and take forward to next year. Moving us, we're good? Okay. Moving us on, work session items. The work session provides an opportunity for the City Commission to discuss items in greater detail. The Commission will take no binding action on items presented during this time. Work session topics are eligible for public comment. Members of the public will be limited to 3 minutes for comments. And the item is receive an update on the street maintenance program related to the Connected City Outcome Area.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. My name is Dave Crone. I'm the City Engineer in our MSO department, and tonight I'm going to give a presentation about our street maintenance program. So street maintenance follows under the Connected City outcome. Connected City states that the City of Lawrence has a well-maintained, functional, and efficient infrastructure, facilities, and other assets that connectivity supports accessible, sustainable methods for safely moving people and information throughout the community and the region, and that investments in these assets reflect the city's commitment to contribute to the well-being of all people. So in this presentation, I'm going to go over the progress indicators that relate to street maintenance, pavement condition index, and the assessment method that we do to score that. Talk a little bit about asset management and our 5-year street maintenance plan. So this is a list of all 14 Connected City progress indicators, and there are 2 that are related to street maintenance. CC1, the percent of residents satisfied or very satisfied with the condition of major streets, and CC number 8, which is the cost per lane mile. And so that cost includes the amount that we spend out of the street maintenance program and the amount of cost that we spend out of other CIP projects to reconstruct pavement. So under the CC1, we have 2 data points to date that these are taken from the community survey that is done every couple of years. So back in 2020, 45% of residents stated that they were satisfied or very satisfied with the condition of the streets, and you can see in 2022, when that question was asked again, it dropped a couple points to 41%. The target that was set for that is 50%. So over the last couple of years, we've dropped a little bit in that area, and really the strategy in this to improve that relates to the investment that we spend in the streets. The other KPI is the cost per lane mile that we spend. And so this is a graph that's tracking the amount that we spent per lane mile. Here's the data over the last 5 years. I would note 2020 is a kind of a lower number. We didn't have any capital improvement projects that year, and we had a lower street maintenance budget, but we have increased significantly the past few years. I'm going to talk a little bit here, a couple slides about our projections for the cost per lane mile, but you can see in 2024 we're about $13,600 or so is the amount that we're spending per lane mile. So pavement condition assessment. So every 3 years, we're on a cycle now that we are working to go out and capture the condition of the pavement. So we do that. This is kind of a newer technology. We started this in 2020. And so you see a picture there on the bottom right. That's the mobile asset collection vehicle. So that vehicle at the end of last year drove all of the city streets. They were equipped with cameras and lasers and a lot of cool equipment to capture images that are really good detail. They can capture the full width of a lane, 12 foot wide, and so they use that the imaging information. They also have they're able to look at the road profile and the longitudinal profile of the road, and they use what's known as an international roughness index that factors into the condition of the road, and all of that data is put together, and essentially we come up with a pavement condition index for every centerline mile of street in the community. And that ranges from 0 to 100, 100 being good. And so this is a great method. It's a standard method that other communities use as well. It's repeatable. We first did it in 2020. We did it in 2023 using the same method. And so it gives a good objectionable information on determining the condition of the streets and how they're deteriorating over time that we can use to make some decisions. A little more about the scoring of the pavement condition index. So here you can see there's 5 different categories that we group them into. 86 and above, very good condition. 71 to 85, good. Fair, poor, and very poor. So overall, in the community, we have about 885 lane miles now of streets that we maintain, public streets, about 350 centerline miles. and we've been targeting a PCI of 70. So you can see here, these are the last two cycles of the assessment that we've done in 2020. We had an overall condition of 65.6. You can see it there broken down by the classification of street, arterials, collectors, and locals. And then in 2023, dropped a couple of points, and we're at about a 63 overall citywide. Arterial dropped a little, 70, collectors 66, and locals dropped the most to about a 59. So I would say this is a point in time calculation. So, you know, the work that we do this year won't really get factored in until we do this condition assessment again in a couple of years. We're doing a lot of visual, I think, improvements that a lot of people see this year because we're on a lot of arterial streets. We're on 6th Street, we're on Wakarusa, we're on North 2nd. We're getting ready to start another project on Wakarusa north of 6th Street. So I could see arterial bumping up a little bit when we do our next assessment in a few years. But the real noticeable thing that we need to start focus on is some of our local streets, I think. So we do use that information to put together our yearly programs, and also you know, like I mentioned, we've targeted an overall condition assessment of 70, and really, you know, this is one of the things, like, is that right for our community? Is 70 a right number? So I've, you know, the last couple of assessments we've done, we've been at 65, 66, 63, so we've been in the mid 60s. When we asked the community through the survey what are their areas of emphasis for major city services, the overall maintenance of streets and utilities is the highest by far. So you can see there some of that may be a little hard to read. I cut out this graph, but all the major city services are there. And the maintenance of streets is not only the highest, but the number one choice, which is the blue section, the blue piece of the graph, is higher than the top three of all the other services. So what really, you know, this is telling us is, you know, we're targeting a higher PCI, we are at a lower one, and so really I think, you know, this is, we still want to strive to improve the PCI, and I think 70 is probably still a good number at where we should try to target, and 70 is also kind of a general target that other communities like ours in the area use as a target. Topeka, Manhattan, Olathe, so it's a pretty common a goal, which is right at the top of the fair or the bottom of the good if we're looking at the PCI range. So a little bit about some asset management, and we've been using this data to kind of project out what our PCIs could be if we stay on the level of funding that we're at now, and also looking at the portion of the budget that is unfunded in street maintenance. And so this is something that we look at continuously through running some models based off of unit costs, adding lane miles per year, the cost that it takes to keep up with inflationary increases. And so overall, if we're trying to achieve a target of 70, that investment is about $18 million per year. And so the one thing that I would point out is it's not a one-year investment. It's something that needs to happen year after year after year, over a long time, to make gradual improvements to get to what our target would be. Some more examples of projections: a PCI of 65, which is probably just a little more than we're at now. It's where we were at 3 years ago, 17 million a year, and PCI of 62, $16 million per year. So the graph on the bottom right projects out about 10 years, starting in 2024. The green line includes a fully funded program, the 5-year CIP program, and you can see in the first 2 years it goes up a little bit, and then it starts to decline a little bit, but it gradually starts to increase over time. The orange or yellow line is what's actually funded, and the next slide will show the amounts that are funded in the proposed 5-year CIP. But you can see it also kind of increases a little over the next couple of years, but then without steady funding, it decreases. And that's really kind of creates a larger gap and backlog. And so if we don't keep up with funding the program, that we could see more costs and expenses down the line to essentially to catch up. So this is the current 5-year CIP for the street maintenance. The green bar there is what's in the CIP under the street maintenance program. So that's a bulk of the dollars. That's contracted street maintenance. The blue bars there are costs that are spent out of CIP projects to restoring pavement. In 2025, we're planning to redo Iowa south of the Irving Hill Road Bridge to 23rd Street. So there's about $6 million in that project for pavement. Obviously, that project's larger than $6.5 million because we're spending money on sidewalks, curb and gutter, pavement marking, signals, water lines, et cetera. And we're also targeting redoing Mass Street south of 14th to 23rd, potentially with a grant project. So there's about $500,000 in the CIP for that project. And then the red is the unfunded amount based off of our target. So I mentioned the $18 million in today's dollars in 2025, but would be $18 million. We're showing $18,575,000. That includes some engineering and inspection costs to manage the street maintenance program. So it's just slightly higher than the 18 million. But you can see we're closing the gap in the next 2 years. It's the street maintenance program is the highest amount that the city has put into that program here, and steadily increasing the next couple of years. But as you can see, as we're looking forward, assuming just a 3% inflation rate, the gap can grow a little larger in some of the out years. 2027 through 2029, we don't have any planned CIP reconstruction projects. So though our street maintenance program in the CIP is growing in the amount, we're not spending money out of other projects in some of those outer years. So those are going to be some things that we want to focus in future budget and CIP conversations. Some challenges with the program. So like I mentioned, a portion of the program is currently unfunded. It competes with all of the other CIP priorities, as you know. It's funded out of multiple different funding sources. The biggest chunk is out of the infrastructure sales tax. There's some funding in geodebt, the gas tax. We receive an allocation federal funds through the state that goes to street maintenance, and a small portion of our stormwater utility goes into the program as well. Talk a little bit about some of the challenges as well with construction costs. We've seen about a 40% inflation in the past 4 years across the board of all different type of work items on our contracted street maintenance and reconstruction projects. And it gives us less buying power. So I mentioned the target for a PCI 70 was about $20,000 per lane mile per year. When we did the last cycle 3 years ago, we were around $16,000 per lane mile per year. So costs are going up, and that we have seen it kind of level off here this year. We've had bids under our estimates, thankfully, but there's something that we're tracking and need to be thinking about going forward. So another note is that we just have a busy construction industry across the board. It's not just in Lawrence, it's other communities as well, that there's a lot of work going on. There's labor shortages. We're seeing less competition on our projects. In previous years, we'd get multiple bidders, 3, 4, 5 bidders. Now we're routinely getting 2 on our street maintenance projects. And we're seeing a lot of variability in bids. So that's just something that we're continuing to look at and track as we progress with our program. But it's a very dynamic situation where we have a program every year. We usually split it into multiple phases, 3 or 4 phases, and bid them out. So there's years that we get better bids and we can add streets, and there's years that we have to trim back as we go. So curb and gutter. So with the assessment that we did here with the mobile asset collection, we also got an assessment of the curb and gutter. It's something that we hear a lot about in the community, the condition of our curb and gutter. So overall, we grouped it into really 3 groups, good, fair, and poor. So we have 540 miles of curb and gutter in Lawrence. You can see 42% good, 227 miles. The majority is fair or poor. So we have a lot of curb that is deteriorating. If we were to put the annual investment in that we thought we needed to maintain the existing condition of curb and gutter, that would be about $2.1 million. So that's the existing condition. Overall, the backlog of poor curb is about $53 million. I would say, when we're looking at the pavement condition index of the streets, that does not account for the curb and gutter. It's just the pavement surface, but inevitably on these street maintenance projects, it makes a lot of sense to repair curb when you're there doing some of the work. So we do spend money out of the street maintenance program that doesn't go directly to improving the surface condition of the street. So over the last few years, it's ranged anywhere from $800,000 to $1 million per year that we've spent on curb and gutter. And in our CIP, it's currently fully an unfunded program in the 5-year CIP. So it is an existing infrastructure, and we want to continue to maintain existing infrastructure, but with all the other competing priorities, it just has not risen to the level of receiving dedicated funding yet. So asset management, continue talking about that a little more, what we're doing. We really want to use our data to predict doing the right treatments at the right time. So we have streets in our communities that were built in different years, over different decades, with different materials, that see different traffic volumes, and they age differently and they deteriorate differently. And it's really one of the things that we need to do to lower the cost per lane mile is look at doing work at the right time and the right treatments to preserve the streets as long as we can. So that's our asset management group spends a lot of time looking at the data. They provided me these 2 curves, which is just an example to show you how 2020 is on the left, 2023 is on the right. It just shows the way that the information, the data that we got when we went through this last collection shows the deteriorate if nothing were done on the streets, that it levels off. That level, the line is about age 50, the middle, and once you get to 60, it really drops off a lot. So really the point behind this is, again, doing the right treatments at the right time. There are a lot of things, lower cost things that we can be doing if we can keep up with maintaining crack sealing and microsurfacing to just prolong the longevity of the streets. And so that's something that we're continuously looking at as we put together our annual programs. I did want to take a little bit of time to point folks to our street maintenance website. So this is something that we've been working on. It's ongoing work in progress. The last year was the first year we published a 5-year street maintenance plan, which would show some of the work that we plan to do in the out years. Just like any 5-year plan, that's not a promise that we're going to get there, but it does give an indication, given the funding that we have, when we anticipate to be in an area and do work. So you can go in on the website and click on your street and see the condition of the street. You can also go and look at previous programs and where we've done work. And again, this is something that we just want to point folks to be able to see, you know, when should I expect work to be done on my street. We do, it's not as simple as just all based off of the data of the pavement. We're also working on coordinating with other programs, whether it's water line replacement, stormwater rehab, to do corridor approach type projects. And so sometimes we push a street out a year or two or accelerate it up a year or two just to be in the same place at the same time with other projects. 6th Street is a really good example of that, where we're doing stormwater work, traffic signal work, shared use path, water line. And it was, quite frankly, going to be done a couple of years ago, and we've had other issues and said, hey, we're going to push it. It got really bad, but it was worth pushing it to do everything at once in 1 year. So that's something that, again, every year we intend to put out a 5-year plan, but then really hone in on the next year of work. So we're already working on putting plans together for the 2025 program, and based off of the approved budget for that. So a few next steps that we're going to continue to work on is continuing to look at our asset management and modeling to achieve the lowest cost of ownership, run the models, look at the data, look at the deterioration rates to see what makes the most sense. We're going to keep working on publishing a 5-year street maintenance plan so that we're communicating that to the public. And I noted earlier the drop in the residential street PCI. I think that's something that we need to start emphasizing to bring up. I know we've spent a lot of money on our arterial streets, which are very important. They take a lot of traffic volume, but we're finally getting to the point where you know, we're seeing those PCIs at 70 or above, and so I think we're looking to start putting some emphasis on those local streets. We intend to keep doing that assessment of the streets every 3 years so we can track our progress and see with the dollars that we're spending where our PCIs are at. And then still continuing to look to fully fund the program to achieve a PCI target of 70. And then thinking about ways to fund a curb and gutter program. So like I mentioned, it's currently unfunded. That could include looking at our stormwater utility to take look at identify some funding from that program just to at least offset what we're spending out of street maintenance when we go through and replace curb and gutter. So that's all that I have, and so I do really appreciate the opportunity to present all this information. There's a lot of people behind the scenes that work in our department to maintain the streets and look at the data, and it's really a team effort, and so I really appreciate your time and attention to this. And I'm here for any questions.
Thanks, Dave. Any questions?
Dave, one of the questions I had, you talked about, you know, the curb and gutter program and how it relates to street maintenance. I'm curious, you know, I think we're emphasizing ADA accessibility, and obviously some of that will be ramps, which affect curbs, obviously just at an intersection. But I'm curious, how, is there an overlap if we were going in to do a sidewalk and we're going to put in a new curb to get the new ADA ramp in there? Are we looking at the rest of the curb at that point, while we have somebody there pouring curbs, or how do those interact?
Yeah,
Mr.
I'd
Program?
probably say it depends. On more major streets where the curb is really bad and we're already doing a mill and overlay and the
Yeah.
curb is bad, and when we do mill and overlay or any significant maintenance project over a crack ceiling that's adjacent to a ramp, we're required to improve it to ADA standards. We have an ADA program, which is great, but just in the past, we've been required to do that, and we've done that. And so I'd probably say for the most part, it's just isolated to if we were not doing the curb and gutter, it would just be isolated to the ramp in that area. Because again, we would be using street maintenance funds to redo the curb and gutter. So any curb and gutter that gets redone through ADA ramps at the corners, that comes out of the ADA ramp money.
And I guess that's what I'm asking. I'm asking the reverse. Let's say under our ADA program, we have to fix a sidewalk and a curb on some street that's not on your list. There's not going to be any work in the next 5 years on that street, but we're going to put in a new curb, put in a new ramp, and is someone who's working on that project calling you up and saying, hey, we have this entire street has a bad curb, or we're replacing curb anyway, should we go ahead and put another 10 feet of curb in, or is there an overlap there?
Yeah, we do look at, across our different programs, coordinating where we're going to be that year to see in those situations if it makes sense to extend the curb, or if there's something else that we need to pick up. So whether it's a bus stop, we've done bus stop pads with our street maintenance program as part of the contract and use funding, and then we coordinate really across different departments too, to look at in different programs to see if there's opportunities to, if we're right there, we should fix it. But there's instances where you could go for blocks and blocks and blocks, and it's bad curb.
Sure.
And so if you're doing a ramp, how far do you take it? So there's some judgment there. There's some judgment out in the field. We go out and look to see the condition and make judgment decisions like that. But no, certainly opportunities to do that, and that's what we try to do with our coordination internally.
Yes, thank you.
I had a couple questions, Dave. The Mack vehicle, is that one of ours, or is that contracted out?
It's contracted.
It's all contracted. Okay. In 2020 was the first year we started using the LiDAR?
Correct.
2020. Okay. So I'm looking at the funding on, I guess it's page 13 of 19 for the budget over the next 5 years. You've got CIP projects in 2025 and 2026. Do you anticipate any CIP projects coming up in the out years?
In
addition
27, 28, 29?
Yeah.
There are none that are funded for street reconstruction projects. We had looked at Wakarusa between 6th and Harvard. There's a piece there that's been unfunded. Naismith Drive, 19th to 23rd, has been a project on the CIP that's been unfunded that we've pushed out a couple years. We did mill and overlays on them 4 years ago, and they're holding up better than we thought they would. And so we've intentionally said they didn't need to be reconstructed right away. But like I said, things happen. We can have bad winters and streets fall apart that we're not really expected to, and we pivot and make changes. So there's no funded projects currently.
Okay.
27 to 29.
So my last question is the streets that we've been repairing through this past few years, either micro whatever or actual patching. Are we putting them on a schedule so that we can continue to maintain those so they don't degrade to the point to where we have to actually replace them, sort of the best use of our dollar?
Yeah, that's what a good asset management and pavement maintenance program does, is that if it's fully funded, if we set the target, say it's 70, and we spend those dollars every year, and we get to 70, we continue to spend those dollars to do the treatments that are needed to keep the streets at that condition, whether it's a crack seal, an overlay. So the asset modeling software that we use, it does make some assumptions on, if you mill and overlay a street, you need to come back in 3 years and crack seal it. Then in 5 years, you come back and microsurface it. And then maybe after 10 or 15 years, you mill and overlay it again. And then after so many mill and overlays, and you reconstruct it over a long, particularly our arterial streets that we've been doing a lot of that reconstruction on, but there could be more and more local streets that we need to do that. So the thing that worries me in my job is that if we're continuing to not fully fund it and we keep getting lower and lower PCI values, it just increases that gap, the cost to catch up, or inevitably it gets to a point where you can't do routine maintenance and you got to spend a lot more money to reconstruct it, and it becomes a larger project. So hope that answered your question.
So are we tracking those projects where we've done the repairs, and when we need to come back 3, 5, 10 years,
We
are
are.
we tracking those, saying, okay, we should be doing this year or 5 years, and whether or not we can actually, we have the money to do that?
We're tracking the streets that we feel that we need to do the work on, but the last few years there's been more streets and more work than dollars in the program.
Thank you.
Commissioner Sellers?
I did, sorry. I was collecting my thoughts there. Okay, Dave, on page 7, with the, and we don't even have to look at the page, just quick point of reference. For the PCI, do we typically do that every 2 years? Is there a set time when we do the pavement condition index? That we do it conditionally every 2 years, or?
Yeah, it's every 3 years.
Every 3 years.
Yeah, we did it in the fall last year. They want to do it. They try to do it strategically before the leaves fall, and there's some streets that I think they started in the summer. They did some streets when school was out, so they could drive some of the streets with parking on them. But it takes a few months to do that. But it's every 3 years.
Okay. So every 3 years. And so my first thought was, in seeing the different scores, I was like, oh, how does it take into effect climate if we've had more unseasonable climate, more rain, more ice? But then you're talking about mill and overlay and how that also goes into effect. So is it, I don't want to make an assumption, but does it account for climate? And if it doesn't, is it one to expect that a certain amount of mill and overlays are calculated to assume that this is because of either wear and tear, it's due to wear and tear as a relationship to climate?
Yeah, I'll tell you, it doesn't directly relate to climate. It takes the deterioration rate of our streets on average, and it tells us like what treatment we should do on that type of street when, after how long of a time. Now, if our climate is continually changing, then I think that would continually get reflected in what the model is, or what the PCI scores are, or the deterioration rates. But weather is not factored into.
Well, a full indication.
Yeah.
So if we're consistently doing it on a 3-year basis, and let's say we notice that before we get to that 3-year term, we have 2 years of like horrendous weather that really puts a strain on how we're able to keep street maintenance up, would you recommend us moving ahead and not waiting to the 3rd year to do a PCI, or should we just wait? And if we know that it's going to, or do we just assume that we're going to anticipate our numbers, our index is going to drop because we know that the weather has had an impact on street conditions because we're doing more of something.
Yeah. I wouldn't say we would necessarily move it up a year to do it earlier. I think 3 years is a good amount of time. It is just, it's a point in time calculation. So you could spend a lot of money. You could spend a program to do the minimal amount on a lot of streets and then go out and get the number, and it would be a lot higher and you'd feel really good. But then the next time it would probably be a lot lower because we want to gradually maintain or increase the PCI and not do it one time. Weather does, I mean, a lot of the impacts that weather has with freeze thaw, potholes is work and costs that come out of operations and our street maintenance operational group to patch potholes. Some of it does correlate to more of a decrease, I think, in the condition of the streets, but we haven't been able to tie anything, or I haven't heard of any other communities that have tied changes in weather to changes in the deterioration of pavement. But just being here for a long time, I know that we've had some winters where it's been a lot of freeze thaw cycles and a lot of precipitation, and we've had we've made some changes to at the last minute or in that year to go out and do something we didn't plan to do, just to keep the surface of the street in an adequate condition. So.
And then kind of a projecting question, you had talked about working with the different departments for better coordination. And so kind of to speak to that point and what Commissioner Finkeldye was getting to is what that would look like. Are you hoping that would be something more internal facing or public facing, like maybe some type of GIS overlay to kind of show that? Or how are you hoping to accomplish the work of getting all of those different departments together to say, okay, this is what you're doing, this is what we're needing to do, show that in a way that the community can see or interpret it, or at least for us as commissioners can interpret what that work looks like?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I hope that we can continue to show what we're doing across all programs and do it in a way that is understandable to the community too. If you're able to go and look online at the different programs, we've just got so many different programs. I know with the we have sidewalk, bike, ped infrastructure money that we have 5 years planned for that. So that's something that has a 5-year plan, and now we have street maintenance 5-year plan. We can get an ADA transition 5-year plan, and hopefully start marrying some of those up. And there's also just the inevitabilities of, okay, we've had a lot of water line breaks on this water line in this last year. It wasn't really planned in the 5-year plan, and now we're going to go tear up the street. Well, we might as well overlay it. Well, now we're not going to do something else. So there's a lot of things that that do come up, and so it's yes, we want to continue to be able to be transparent and show what we plan to do, but we also are reacting and adapting to things that come up routinely. So it's a balance.
Gotcha. Thank you, Dave.
I got one more question.
Commissioner Sellers?
I'm good.
Okay. Commissioner Larson?
Yeah, I wanted to go back to how we evaluated 885 lane miles, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
And my question is that all, did you do in the entire city, or are those a select number?
The whole city.
Whole city,
Mm-hmm.
on both in 2020 and 2023?
Yes.
Okay.
2020, we had 860 lane miles, 860.5. The 885 is an approximation. We're not down to this is 885, it could be 886, but we're still going through the polygons of some of that stuff. But yeah, it was the same, essentially the same, I don't know if it was the exact same van, but it was the same company, drove the same streets, the same way, using the same equipment.
Okay, great, thank you.
ask a question? David, can you tell me about what might have changed in the evaluation scoring process between our historical methodologies for doing pavement condition index and the automated or a more technical advanced process? And then secondarily, are we still using the former method for curb and gutter assessment, and can we not do that using that automation?
So to answer the question on pavement assessment, prior to 2020, we assessed streets manually. We would basically do a fourth of the streets every year. So every 4 years, we would complete a visual cycle, a rating, and we did that for, I think, four cycles prior to 2020. Probably not as consistent and repeatable as the current method, but it was still a good way at the time, given the technology, to prioritize our program at the time. So that's what we used to do. And then your question on the curb and gutter,
They can't evaluate it remotely or using the same either camera or LiDAR technology, I mean, to at least evaluate the curb and gutter condition?
That's what we did use the technology from when we drove this vehicle. So if I wasn't clear on that.
No, so you did use that system.
Yes, that was used to extrapolate that data that was presented on the curb and gutter slide was from the mobile.
Okay, so you can't get that data?
Yes.
Okay,
yeah.
I wasn't quite sure if you were using the old manual technology.
No. None of it's manual anymore. There is a QCQA process. The consultant does their own QCQA on their data, and then we do look at a few streets just to verify that we're getting accurate data. So there's very minor actual going out and looking at the streets visually like we used to.
So I guess in conclusion, did you see much of a change in the evaluation between how we did it manually every year to accumulate the 3-year period and the automated? In other words, did our grade go up or down? Was it roughly the same based on using the same parameters that we did in the past? Is it pretty reliable based on what you've seen in the past?
Yeah, in the old method, we were ranged from, I think, around 68 to 74 in there. But it would take a significant amount of time for 1 or 2 staff throughout a year to rate the streets. So when you get to the street, when you rate it, it was the same people and the same method, so we hope it was consistent, but it's not as consistent as getting all the streets in a couple of months using cameras and other data that's more sophisticated or repeatable maybe than a person going out and looking at it. So not apples to apples, but pretty close. I think the way we used to do it that was the way that all communities did it. They went out and looked at it, and now technology's changed, and we've adapted to that, and it's more efficient for us, and we get better data, and so we plan on continuing to use that. It's called ASTM, the American Society of Testing and Materials Methods. So it's a stand that the process the van does, the mobile asset collection vehicle, is that standard that is done across the board for other communities.
Thank you.
Any additional questions? All right, with that, I will open it up to public comment regarding street maintenance.
My name is Dr. Justin Spees, and continuing with the trend of not knowing what is germane and what is not germane in here, what is allowed and what is not allowed, I think Christians are really nice people. I think they're really nice people. Contrary to what Sherilyn Wells said during the previous agenda item, when she was talking about
your comments to street maintenance, or somehow.
So that's where the confusion comes from there, Bart. I asked you specifically, precisely for this reason, when I spoke last time, for some clarity on what's germane. So when I spoke just a little while ago on another item, I was allowed to speak about Christians here, just like Sherilyn Wells was, but now all of a sudden I can't. Why is that? So I think that Christians are really nice people. That they can be judgmental, sure, just like anybody, just like you guys. You guys are judgmental.
Sir, can you please, like I said, refer to street maintenance?
How come you didn't stop me last time I was talking about Christians? And
I specifically referred to public comment regarding street maintenance.
well, then, but that agenda item last time was specifically on the budget as well, and so that had nothing to do with the budget. And I flat out asked, I said, "How is this even germane? You all just sat there. You didn't even bother to answer me." So now we're in this position where now I don't know. All of a sudden, now I'm not allowed to talk about something before. So I was just looking for some clarity to avoid precisely what's going on here. And so, anyways, so they get a bad rap. But back when I was a student at Washburn University, I did a service learning project at the community shelter, the old community shelter that's there, I think, on 11th.
If you don't cease to not refer to street maintenance, I'm going to have to ask you to leave.
You're going to have to ask me to leave?
Yes, sir.
Why is that?
Because I've asked you multiple times to go ahead and, refer to street maintenance. The previous discussions were regarding houselessness, which is under the overreaching view of the budget. And so...
But I didn't ask how her talking about homelessness related to. I said, how does her talking shit on Christians relate to that item? And I didn't get an answer from you on that. And I'm still looking for one as well.
So, well, you've got like 50 seconds, so...
Do I really? Okay, Thanks, Bart. Thanks. So anyways, like I was saying, that homeless shelter, I think, was like on 11th Street. And I found out then that it was such a cool thing that in the wintertime when there was overflow in that homeless shelter, the churches that surround there, the Christian churches there, would take in the overflow of the homeless there. And so when people talk shit on Christians like that, I can't stand it, because they do a lot of good. They really do. They really do. And I think that it's trendy and safe for them to be allowed to be talked shit on, no problem, by you guys and society at large, while overlooking those good things that they do as well. And so, yeah, so that was really cool to see. And so appreciate the time, Bart.
Hi, this is Chris Flowers, and one of the graphs I saw, it was from the 2022 survey, and it said like the survey results was like the citizens care about traffic flow and congestion. That was number 2, and I just wish the city would keep that more in mind when they do street redesigns. And I want to bring up the Mass Street redesign. When it comes to redesigning streets, I think city staff should include projected added congestion and how much changes will slow down traffic. So like when it comes to what I've seen about proposed for the Mass Street redesign, they want to take out the yield lane, I think, on 23rd going on to Mass, so it'd just be a regular right turn lane. And I just want, when that comes up next, I think the city should have projections of like how many less cars will make it through a green light cycle if we remove that yield lane. Like we should be having, like if they do projected, they'll make it this much safer, they should also do a projected, it'll make it this much slower for the rest of traffic. Because, I mean, I don't know, was like traffic safety one of the, I didn't see it on the list, but could people have voted on it? It's just weird though that the number 2 thing that the citizens of Lawrence care about is traffic flow and congestion. So I just wish the city would do a better job of keeping that in mind and not just focusing all on safety, because we care as much about traffic flow and congestion. Thank you.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Would you like to go ahead? My bad.
Name is Thomas Duggar, K-State graduate, but I'm moving to Lawrence. I came up from 31st Street Post Office to here on a lift. Once we got to north of 19th Street, the one-way street going north to 7th was bad. I got videotape of the entire 75% of that trip, and the Lyft driver was complaining 75% of the time about all the potholes along it. So I'd give that street a rating of 30% at best. Back to sidewalks. I walked with my stroller from 23rd Street on the east side of Mass to 18th Street. 75% of the sidewalk is bad. It's either brick or it's perfectly flat but angled at a 30% degree. I could not walk in my stroller on the sidewalk. I had to go out in the street because I was just leaning all the way over. So I had to go out in the street to bypass those sections. There's also sections where the lift between two sections is more than a foot. It's not even safe for a normal person to walk on it. That's all along the east side of Mass, have no sidewalks. And I'll go into accounting and budgeting next year because my degree is BS in accounting from K-State in 1976. And I had an IT career for 28 years that I'm retired from.
Thank you.
Just to let you know, this is regarding public comment regarding street maintenance. Yeah. Street maintenance. We'll have public comment, general public, in a little bit.
I just had a quick question for Mr. Cronin. If in any of his data, he was able to discern the roads and the maintenance related issues with the roads, if it related to the amount of traffic that was on a particular street, or if it related to how bad the weather was, or the salt that we're using, or other methods in treating the roads during those weather-related issues. And I just bring it up just because in another meeting I had brought up the emphasis and all the benefits of getting more people on bikes and building protected bikeways to many various benefits within the community, but specifically with this issue and issues of the budget, looking into models of increasing the amount of traffic on bikes and getting less cars off the road, and if they might help preserve our roads a little longer. That was just a question I had, so thank you.
Hi guys, we're talking about roads, which is a niche subject that I like to always just bring up. City walkability is something that we're all going to have to consider in the future. Right now, it's very car-centric. We're freeing up transit, which is nice. That's amazing. I've known friends that have taken advantage of that and now work in Lawrence without a vehicle. They don't have to worry about their car breaking down. They can get to work somehow. But walkability is something that is in the long term. A lot of cities will grow out instead of up. And as a result, you have sprawling suburbs that really don't do anything for the city aside from just be there and force people to have longer and longer commutes. But in the future, it comes down to working class individuals being able to get wherever they need to easily. Within 15 minutes is the ideal. People have said 15-minute cities is kind of what that's referring to. And it helps. Say you're unhoused and desperately trying to get by. Being close to resources like the library or community centers, as well as maybe jobs that might even hire you, would be very important for someone who might not always be able to get on the bus for whatever reason. Having a quick walk there would be good. Making sure that they're able to have housing of some kind, or even if it's haphazardly put together in a tent or something. Just the point is to make sure that people have access to those resources, being able to walk towards that stuff. It's something to consider in Lawrence in the future, and it's something that will always come up repeatedly forever and ever until both you and I are all dead. Anyway, thank you.
Hello, David Baston. I've all the data and stuff he shows is really good, but if you don't have anybody to go in and inspect the work afterwards, let's just take the crack seal program that we've had going on this year. On 3 occasions, I've went by and inspected the stuff myself. I just happened to be going by, and I know what the crack seal program entails. Went by the first time, noticed they were doing it wrong, questioned them, called the city, and spoke to someone that said they were going to send a supervisor out, which they never did. The company ended up calling the police on me, saying that I was getting in their business and that I wasn't a city employee, blah, blah, blah. But anyway, the police came and left, and I told them why I was there. But I did get a hold of Stephen Lashley. He's one of the engineers that knows that specific program. So they said they were going to take care of it. I went on about my business. 2 weeks later, I happened to see the same crew out there doing another spot. Waited for them to go about their business, rechecked what they did. Same thing again. They were doing it totally wrong, going over dirt and so forth. Called Steve again. He said that they were doing it, that I need to stop picking at their stuff. Then a couple weeks later, I happened to just see him again, looked at it again, same thing again. I checked it, same stuff. But we just, and then again, when we redid 23rd Street, looks really good. They came and scraped that all off, and they got exposed aggregate, and that is going to eventually pop out, which I brought that up, but they basically think, everybody thinks they know, or maybe they just don't want to hear from somebody that actually does know about some of their stuff that they do. And one of the things that you asked about, rain is a bad contributor to asphalt breaking up, especially if you have any cracks. When any rainwater, snow, anything gets below it, it leaches out, and that's why you get more and more cracks. So that's why I was concerned about us spending all this money on the cracks, doing it wrong when we have a program that specifically tells them how to do it, and they're not following that. The inspectors, engineers and so forth. So I'd like for us to do a little bit better job going through those programs and making sure that we are following up with the work that's being done by places out of town.
Time.
So it really does appear that the road to hell is paved with good intentions. A couple roads to hell I want to mention real quick. Bob Billings between Castle and Wakarusa, Castle and Monterey. Your 3-year cycle, Mr. Cronin has missed that one for the last 15, I think. And I'll point out another road to hell, which I'm surprised that you don't have police officers in here bitching about that one all day, because it's Wakarusa north of 6th. We have heavy vehicles in this town that are taking a huge beating from these streets. Wakarusa north of 6th is one that I dread getting a call up there, because it's literally going to knock the hell out of my truck driving on that street. And I'm sure that the rich people out there have to realize that. But one of the biggest roads to hell that's been paved with some kind of an intention I don't understand is the discrimination, Bart. Christians, do you really have an issue with Christians? Or do you just have an issue with control? Because I'm a little speechless with what's gone on in this room tonight. After all the different times that people have been threatened and shut down and things, and even the couple times that Christians? Why do you hate Christians? Or why is it that you cater to them? Or is it heathens that you hate? It's just the heathens? And how is this germane to streets? See, this is my confusion of what's going on right now. And, you know, a little while ago, I was throwing fingers at you, throwing the bird. And the reason I was doing that was because your inconsistency, it deserves that. Because one person can do something, another person can't. It just really depends on who it is and whether you like them or not. Is that really what it is? I don't get it, man. But whatever you're doing, when you inspire us to start revolting back like that sign thing, you know, you were out of order. You were way out of order doing that. And I think you knew it, but why would you even go there? See, at the point, I was perfectly willing to sit there and not say anything the whole time. But you instigated that because you have an issue with control. You instigated that. You caused me to really need to do that tonight a lot. I mean, my hand just keeps doing that because of the way you acted earlier.
Most of that was not germane.
Unless it's regarding street maintenance, we're going to have public comment here in a little bit later. Sherry, do we have anybody online?
No, Mayor.
Talk about what they want. Is that gender identity discrimination?
We don't, Mayor.
Okay. Bringing it back to us for final comments.
I want to thank staff for the work on that. It was good to see. I think that's the first time I've seen the data put together, the LiDAR data in comparison. That was good to see. It's a little disappointing to see that we're falling a little bit, going a little bit backwards on a couple of the types of streets, but at the same time, you know, we're funding what we can, and I think anytime we can find additional funds to increase that funding, I think we need to do that. Thank you.
I'd only add, in addition to that, you know, I use that street maintenance website a lot because that's one of the big calls we get. Like, when is this going to happen? Like, you know, Wakarusa, people have been asking about, and, you know, now it's being done this fall. You know, I've gotten calls about that, or calls about different sections. You know, the Bob Buildings is on that five-year plan. And anyway, people call and ask about when those streets going to get repaired, and so I can refer them to that, and I appreciate that. It's a very handy tool, so appreciate it.
I'm good, thank you. Thank you for the presentation.
Thank you.
Moving us on to item G, commission items. Commission items?
No, sir.
Not seeing any. Commissioner Sellers? Nope. Okay. Okay. Item H, city manager's report.
Only 2 items on there, the ex parte reminder and the future agenda items.
Any questions regarding the city manager's report?
No, sir.
Comment item on city manager's report. Any questions regarding the city manager's report from the public?
My name is Dr. Justin Spees. Just continuing this trend of not knowing what's germane and not germane, what's allowed and not allowed in these meetings. I just want to take this opportunity to kind of counterbalance. Earlier, someone was in here talking shit on Christians. And so I want to kind of present the second half of that, because then people just get kind of a poor taste in their mouth because she was allowed to talk about that specific group.
City manager?
Well, that's where I get confused, Bart. I've been asking, you know, she was talking shit on Christians during the budget item thing, and you allowed that. So I get confused. Why do you stop me when I'm trying to say, like, you know, Christians are good people? Why do you stop me on that, Bart?
Mayor, I'm happy to read the procedures on public comment on a specific item.
Yeah, I think Bart needs to pay attention to that because it was him who didn't stop her. Sure. Yeah, he didn't stop her from speaking.
Sure. So public comment on a specific item. Persons may comment on a specific item at that time. Persons will be limited to addressing the governing body on that specific item one time unless otherwise permitted by the presiding officer. Public comment on a specific item shall be germane. My understanding is the previous commenter that is being referenced was talking about public comment. that was provided related to homelessness.
So she was referencing the homeless. So the item was the budget, and specifically, she said in her
And the budget
opinion,
for
in her opinion, that Christians are whatever negative way she reviewed them to
Sir, are you
as.
going to reference anything regarding the city manager's report?
Well, you know, I just wanted to talk about Christians because that lady was allowed to talk about Christians.
Sir, if you're not going to mention anything regarding the city manager's report, after repeatedly, giving you opportunity to, I'm going to have to issue a warning. So before you continue, will you reference anything regarding the city manager's report?
What does that warning entail?
Sir, this is your warning. Please reference something regarding the city manager's report.
Sherry, what does that warning entail?
You have a myriad of options regarding the city manager's report.
Is one of them Christians?
Sir, could you please remove the gentleman up here? And I would.
How much time does he have left?
He's got 2 minutes. So.
What are 2 minutes?
Thank you, officer. I appreciate
Sir,
that.
we're going to go ahead and recess for about 5 minutes. I apologize, but
2 minutes when you come back.
No?
No, you're not going to shut him down, Bart, with a
I bring this meeting back to order. And I wanted to go ahead and give an explanation of the word germane and what is germane, since Mr. Spees asked for that. Germane is relevant to the subject under consideration, and in this case, that would be regarding the city manager's report, and that would be any items regarding the future agenda items or the ex parte items. So
that's a sleight of hand, Bart. I wasn't asking what germane is. I'm aware. The issue is how was she able to talk shit on Christians, and that was somehow germane. That was the issue. I know what germane is.
What you're talking about is not germane to the items I presented.
Right. But how is her talking about Christians germane?
We're not talking about that. We're talking about this. So I'm giving you the opportunity to go ahead and make this.
All right, just let me collect my thoughts here for a second, Dan. I've been interrupted pretty severely. Let me collect my thoughts here. It'll come to me. Just got to collect my thoughts for a second. I've been interrupted pretty severely here, so hold on a second. But then now I'm confused as how silence is germane to the topic. So no words at all is somehow germane to the topic. Okay, all right, but let me finish collecting my thoughts there. Hold on a second. Something about when I get interrupted, I just lose my train of thought. Give me a couple seconds, would you, Bart? Something about being under threat of arrest. I just lose my train of thought. Give me 1 second, would you? But while I'm collecting my thoughts, can you provide an answer of how silence and no words is germane while I'm thinking of what I wanted to say?
Time.
Thank you, sir.
Hi, this is Chris Flowers, and I believe upcoming agenda items are germane. And nice one of the commissioners forgot to come back, but I was just gonna say one of the upcoming agenda items I didn't see listed was the election of the new mayor and vice mayor. And right now, this is why you all need to actually talk about who's gonna be mayor, because this has been kind of a joke tonight. So I want to see an agenda item where you talk about it beforehand, though. That's what y'all need to do, and this is just kind of crazy tonight. Thank you.
You know, Bart, you had just about stunned me into silence, but I really want to appreciate Chris Flowers right now for really clarifying where my thoughts needed to be right now, because we really do need to have a discussion about who's going to be mayor. And that does future agenda items, right? We need to have that discussion, because the way you've run the shit show here is just absolutely incredible. You're going to draw a line now and say that now we have to stick with the germanity, even though earlier tonight, this is my point, Bart, is you're so inconsistent as a mayor. I mean, I'm really speechless tonight, and that's hard to do to me. That's really hard to do, to make me speechless, to have a hard time to really come up with an appropriate response to what's happened here. But this is why in the future agenda items, we really do need to have a large discussion about how we're going to organize, who's going to be mayor, who's going to control the meeting. You know, maybe one of those agenda items should be maybe just having Sherry sit up there instead, since she seems to understand how the meeting's supposed to process better than you. And I mean, I understand that people elected you and all, but How was any of that germane? How was any of the silence germane? How is the signs thing happening? I mean, this is all something that you guys really need to consider, is why all this is happening with a mayor who loses control of the meeting. And I really think maybe that in a future agenda item, when we're discussing the makeup of that council up there, maybe you should just remove yourself from the ability to sit in the middle there. Because it's a little easier if you're off to the side, like Ms. Sellers. She can just skip this last part. You know, it's a little easier. You can just slide out of here and you don't have to deal with us that way. But it's obvious that there's people that you don't like and people that you do like, and that's a problem when somebody's a mayor up there. That's a problem. And I think in the future agenda items, you need to really have a discussion with your fellow commissioners and the city manager over here about your biases and the kind of trouble it's gotten you into. And then, God, I'm glad he's back. I was afraid Tony Wheeler fired him.
No one's getting fired.
Well, I mean, I was afraid Tony actually fired him.
You want this gentleman there removed?
No, he's fine.
He's fine now?
So now he's going to arrest. Really? I don't have anything else for you. You're a goddamn Nazi. And you, I don't know what just happened.
Any comments on, just wait just a second, unless it's regarding the city manager's report. Okay. Any comments online, Sherry?
No, Mayor.
Okay, bringing it back to us. Commission calendar? Okay, I'm not seeing anything. All right, gonna give it a little bit for anybody to exit that wants to exit. And then we will go to open public comment, and you will be first, please. But give me about 10 seconds.